Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Vaughn from the City of Elizabethtown, and I get the pleasure today to be your host for Issues and Insights. And today's guest for Issues and Insights is Mr. Chief Jeremy Thompson.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for doing this. Of course, I get the pleasure to work with you, not on a daily basis, thank goodness, because I'm not in the police department, but a little bit more than other folks do. So I've got to see a little bit of you the past couple of weeks, and I know that you're really enjoying it. So tell us how the last 2 weeks have gone.
It's gone very well. I've really enjoyed the first 2 weeks, and I used the analogy with you and many others, like drinking from a fire hydrant early on, and that's about the best analogy that I can use. But it's been really good. It's also been very humbling, the positive response I've received, not only internally, but from the community. So it's just been, it's still at that overwhelming stage, but I'm getting more comfortable.
Okay, good. So tell us a little bit about your career, kind of what brought you here when you started as a police officer and all those things.
It really, for me, started in high school. I knew that I wanted to become a trooper. I wasn't exposed to the state police very often because growing up in the southwest part of Jefferson County in PRP, you just didn't see the state police very often. But then every year, my friends and I, we go out to the state fair, and you just see the troopers all around, and the command posts where they were always several of them.
With the big hats.
Yeah, and and I just thought, man, that's pretty neat. I want to do that. So I wasn't the smartest of teenagers, but I did enough research to know what I needed to do. And so I went active duty in the Air Force for 4 years.
Oh, okay.
And then when I got out, as soon as I got out, applied for the state police, and just missed one class, got on a waiting list. So in January '98, I was starting my career with KSP until April of last year. And then April 30th of 18, I retired. Went to work for the U.S. Attorney's Office in Louisville for the Western District of Kentucky, which was a great learning experience, something new for me. And then this opportunity presented itself, and here we are. Okay.
And you're from Elizabethtown now. You've been in Elizabethtown for quite some time.
Yes. My wife and I lived down here. We moved down and started living with her parents while we built a house in 1998. And then I think we moved in around 1999. But we've been here since '98. And she's from here originally. She graduated from E-Town High School.
E-Town High. Okay, great. So she's back home for sure.
Yeah, and this is home. We have no intent of ever going anywhere. As a matter of fact, when I promoted a couple times with the state police, typically we move posts, we move locations, and I've done that, but we've never uprooted the entire family. I've gone down to the Mayfield post for a year and just lived down there and came home on my days off. And then I went to Madisonville post when I was promoted to lieutenant for 18 months, and then would commute that. And then my last nearly 2 years was at Frankfort, and just commuted that. So it's just something that we'd grown accustomed to, but we never uprooted the family from here, and we've always been here.
Okay. So talking about family, you also have children.
I do.
Okay.
Karen and I have been married for almost 21 years. We have, I want to say a senior, but he just graduated from North Hardin Christian a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
And he will be going to U of L Speed School next year.
So not going to become a police officer?
It doesn't look like that's in the cards now, which is fine. I'm very supportive. We are both very supportive of what he's chosen to do. He's earned an academic scholarship to Speed School for next year. And our daughter is going to be a sophomore at North Hardin Christian. Okay. And if there is a ball or a sport, she's involved in it. She's pretty active.
So could they be any more different?
She's a lot like me.
Yeah.
And she's a talker, and she's just a little bit more social. And Tyler is more like Karen. They're very comfortable in their own circles, but certainly not as talkative as my daughter and I are. But in many ways, they're similar until it comes to that which one's the talker and what's not, because they both love to be outdoors and both very active.
Okay. So being a police officer is definitely not an easy career. It's not an easy career for the officer, and it's not an easy career for the family. So tell us about just kind of the things you and Karen have been through over the years, and that support system that you've had and that you really need now, being even more so involved in the police department.
Well, for most people, it's a big change when they get into law enforcement, and if they're married, recently married or something along those lines, it's an adjustment for the spouse as well. for me, I was very fortunate, and that my wife, her father, is a retired trooper.
Oh.
So she already knew the lifestyle. She knew what.
She didn't know anything else.
That's all she's known. As a matter of fact, she was born. My father-in-law was a trooper, so she's grown up in law enforcement. So I didn't have to worry about some of the things that other spouses,
Sure.
that other people had to tell. So that's been great. But for our entire marriage, my entire career, she's been my sounding board.
Yeah.
Come home from work and there's things that you don't feel comfortable talking with other people about, and then, without giving names and specific details,
Right.
she knew when I had bad days, and we would talk about it. And it's been a godsend for me to have a wife that is that willing to listen and knows when, just needs a little time at the end of this shift to kind of wind down. Mm-hmm. But then fast forward to when I retired, that was a family decision as well, because I knew it was going to affect not just me, not just Karen, but the kids. So the decision would, at the end of the day, be mine, but we all talked about it. Mm-hmm. And then you fast forward to re-entering back in law enforcement. It came to light about the chief's position.
Yeah.
So Karen and I talked about it, and we talked about it at length. We do like we do with most big decisions. We talked about it, we prayed about it, said, okay, this is what we're comfortable with. Then bring the kids in, and I said, hey guys, Dad's thinking about getting back in doing this job. What are your all's thoughts? And they laughed, and I said, well, we didn't think you'd stay out this long. So evidently they knew something that Karen and I didn't. But it's been great, because internally with my own family, they were supportive of it.
Great.
And I don't know that I would have done it without that, because
of course
you don't want to cause unnecessary problems, in your family. But it's been really good.
Good. So what would you say is just the vast difference between boots on the ground, state trooper, chief of police in the city of Elizabethtown?
There are a lot of things that are just absolutely parallels, and there aren't any changes. We've had a couple of tactical situations that have occurred in my brief time here already, and the BBB festival right before Jamie retired and I was sworn in, those things, I was very comfortable in those environments.
Sure.
That's the operational side of things. Very few differences. There are some subtle differences, but as a rule, those things flowed just as I was accustomed to.
Okay.
The biggest difference is I listen to some of the activity on the radio, and I hear one of our officers now that they're calling for a unit, and they're there within seconds. Just the proximity of backup is much closer.
Sure.
The time it takes to get to a call is much quicker. And I'm listening to all these things happen, and I remember on the state police, there were times when driving pretty hard, I'm 45 minutes from a call, sometimes over an hour.
Wow.
I can think of instances where I worked a midnight shift, and we had some of our rural parts like Breckenridge County. Ironically, the mayor and I were working midnight shift together when we got a call over on the other side of Breckenridge County, and we were in Sonora.
Oh my gosh. And
we looked at each other and like, how much fuel you have? Check. Because at 3 a.m. in Breckenridge County, you don't have a lot of options for gas.
That's true.
So, that's
true.
obviously a dynamic that I don't have to be concerned with now. Our folks are going to be in closer proximity to each other, to the calls for service, so the response times are going to be faster. So, just kind of early on, from an operational standpoint, those are some differences I've noticed. And then what I've learned in my career with state police, when I was at the U.S. Attorney's Office for a year and now, I've never felt like I had to do anything by myself on a job. You always know you have resources. So you just have to find internally who knows this particular discipline that you're looking for. And I've already had everyone internally at the police department, well, this is how I can help you and this is how I can help you. So I've not had any problems, and I'm not too proud to ask for help. So I've been glad to walk down the hall and say, hey, who normally would be in charge of this?
Where do I go for you?
Yes. I know I'm supposed to know these things. I don't.
Yeah.
But it's been great, and those are probably, in these first couple weeks, the biggest things I've noticed.
Okay. So I know, obviously, you're still drinking from that fire hose, but what are some of the things that our police department does as far as programs and things like that you feel you want to push more on, you want to get out there more, or maybe even do away with and make it better in a different area? Well,
I could say right off the front end of that question, nothing that we'll want to do away with. We've had a lot of our partners in the community come to me early on, a little apprehensive, are we still going to be involved moving forward?
Sure.
And I promised each of them that we will not go backwards.
Yeah.
Whatever we are currently involved in, we will remain involved in for the foreseeable future. It's unlikely, but if I were ever put in a position where I thought, this just doesn't seem like
Sure.
it matches where we need to go, but I've not seen that, not even remotely close. So we have our Bigs in Blue, working with United Way, Big Brothers, Big Sisters programs.
Yes.
There's a bowling initiative that goes along with that, and the only reason I know is we had to present a trophy to KSP because I guess they beat us in bowling last year. So I went with Chief Land to present that trophy. But just since I've taken over at the helm, we've done our Cops and Bobbers out at Freeman Lake with kids.
And that's an annual event, right?
I believe so.
Okay.
And then we had Coffee with a Cop, which is a quarterly event. That was at Chick-fil-A this week.
Okay.
So we had some community involvement there as well. So there's just I know the Shop with a Cop program is big. I haven't participated with EPD yet, but similar things that I've done with in the past in my previous life with KSP. So all of those things that we will continue to be involved with, and then I'm sure that I've left something out unintentionally, but that's the ones that I've been involved with just briefly so far.
Okay. I know that, of course, I came on right after Chief Schiller had been hired. And did you all get to work together, you and Chief Schiller?
A little bit, yes.
He was more Louisville, right?
He was in Louisville, but at the same time, our state police post here covers Jefferson County. So KSP Post 4 has a heavy involvement with the state fair, obviously. Then Thunder over Louisville, Kentucky
Derby.
Oaks and Derby, and big festivals like that. So I've worked with Louisville Metro through my KSP career a lot.
Okay.
But I didn't work with Chief Schiller a lot in Louisville, but when he came down here, I was still at the E-Town Post.
Oh, okay.
So we worked together on several things, some critical incidents that had occurred where KSP was able to help EPD, and then just getting to know each other. So he's been another resource that if I need something, I know I can reach out to.
Sure. He was definitely a gem to the city and continues to be. And,
yes, very much.
But I know one of the biggest things I noticed in being hired at the city at the same time is he really was very quick about implementing, pushing forward, really getting those programs. And then Chief Land, of course, continued that and kind of did some of his own things as well. So, so I know you got big shoes to fill, but most definitely you're already filling them pretty good. So we're excited.
I will try. I know that it was asked of me when I interviewed for the position for Chief. As a matter of fact, Chief Schiller was part of that interview panel. And one of the questions, I'm not sure whom asked it, but they were talking about community-oriented policing. And I said, I really feel like I've been part of that my entire career. Because with KSP, community-oriented policing is you're in these rural parts of Kentucky, in this post area in multiple counties. And my training officer took me down in Sonora on one of my very first nights to the Sammy.
I grew up in Upton, so I'm very familiar.
Yeah, so we went down to Sammy's Market.
Yeah.
And you go in there and there weren't any smoking bans back there, so you could pretty much cut the cigarette smoke with a knife when I walked in. And we just sat down with several people that were in there. I didn't know any of them at the time. We just talked to them and got to know them, and he told me how important that was.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand it right away. But then being the only trooper in LaRue County working night shifts for a while, it paid dividends later on because as I got to know those people, and I got to doing that in other spots in LaRue and Nelson counties, when a crime would occur, somebody would recognize me and they'd come up and they'd say, hey, you might want to start looking here. Check this barn for some of that stuff.
People
and
talk.
Even though that's not the community-oriented policing and the model program, it's still community involvement. Yeah. And it was just something that I was accustomed to, and I realized the importance of it. So then when you bring in the model of community-oriented policing, the more formal plan to get people involved from law enforcement, it just makes sense. But it was not something that I was unfamiliar with. And I explained that to the panel, and I think that was well received instead of somebody coming in with an adversarial outlook on community policing.
Sure.
It was something that they felt like, okay, we're not going to move backwards with our department. Because I do feel like the department is looked at in such a positive light here that that's a benefit to both.
Yes, Most definitely. Well, and we, it's no secret. We all know in the last 3 or 4 years at least, it's been amped up even more across the nation of all of the things of different groups of people getting bad names. And I think that we've all been on a heightened, and now we've got Live PD, and we've got, all of these things kind of becoming as a solution, if you will, to those, or at least I see them that way. But you guys do. I think you all do a phenomenal job at getting out there and growing up in Upton. We had our troopers that we always knew were going to be there at certain times of the week, and it was a comfort. Yeah. It was a comfort for those of us who weren't doing illegal things.
Well, you may or may not remember Reed Smith. Reed was one of those troopers when I started back in the 90s that would work on the Upton side because of the Hardin-LaRue line that goes right down the middle. So the LaRue County troopers would pick up a lot of the Upton calls. Yeah. And that's just how it used to work. And Reed took me over to Upton a couple times. And
different world. Did you get your passport before you came in?
I was worried I would need a permission slip to go from one side to the other, but I never have to pull on any of John Ward's contacts down there because I think the sheriff's from down that way as well.
Oh yes, most definitely, most definitely. So how is there anything that you're going to miss about being a state trooper and being the boots on the ground, or you've wrapped that up and you're ready for something else?
I miss the people. Yeah. The people internally that I had established these relationships with for so long. But the job itself, when I retired, I was comfortable knowing that this part of my life, that I can put that behind me. And there's a certain part of that as I started back to policing here with EPD, I realized that I missed a little bit of that that I didn't think that I would. Yeah. But as far as KSP has some opportunities where you can come back in a Trooper R status. You can actually come back and work as a retired trooper, as a contract employee, and it just was not something that I was interested in doing. So I feel comfortable with that decision to retire from the state police, but I do miss the people because there was just a lot of great people that you lose contact with, and some you still stay in contact with, of course, but you lose that commonality of job, and when you lose that, just, practically speaking, you're not going to have as much interaction with a lot of those people.
Right. All right. So, what's it been like in the day of a chief of police officer? What's your? I'm sure you're pretty much on call 24/7. So yes. I don't know that your day ends, but
no, it doesn't. And again, I fall back on some of the comments I made to the panel because that question was asked too. What do you envision your hours being like, or something to that effect? And I kind of laughed and I said, well, there are no hours. It's
I'm done at 5, right?
And no. 365. If you take on the role of a chief or a sheriff or a commissioner, a leader of a law enforcement agency, it's certainly not a 9 to 5, and you bear the responsibility of the decisions that are made for that department, for that agency, no matter what they are, no matter when they are.
Right.
So that's something that I knew was coming, and some days that have been 12 and 14-hour days already. There hasn't been anything less than 9 that I can think of. I'm fully aware that I could stay in my office between now and probably the end of the year, 12 hours a day, and not get to a comfort level that I want to be.
Got it.
So a lot of days what I've done is just said, okay, I've reached my point today.
Yeah.
I got a good stopping point. I'll come back tomorrow.
Yeah, and knowing those limits.
Yeah, if I don't, I would stay in there, just trying to get more comfortable, and there's plenty to do.
Yeah.
And if there weren't, then I could turn that radio on and then I could start to listen.
Right.
I'm not there
Something's
yet.
going to happen.
I listen when I'm in the car going to and from, listen pretty intently, or if we've had some of these critical incidents, I'm obviously there and I'm listening. But I have that much confidence in our deputy chiefs and our sergeants to just continue to do the professional job that they are doing now. And if something arises that they know they need some help from me, they'll ask.
Sure, yeah. So have you seen yet, you probably have not had time to, have you seen yet a need of something that you might see missing, or something that you all did at the state police that you want to implement here?
It's been a very popular question in the interview circuits that I've done here locally. Is what would you like to change? And I'm not naive to think that there's not a few things that will be changed. There will be, and that's just typical of a change in leadership at any place that you go to, either in law enforcement or out. But there's not that one glowing item, issue that I said, you know what, as soon as I get there, I've got to fix that.
Yeah.
I have to do this or I have to do that. I really came into this not having a sense of any changes that were just that necessitated. But the one good thing is when you come into a department like that and you don't see those big warts that have to be removed, that just shows that your predecessors had it operating at such a high level, which made this job that much more attractive.
Of course. Because
you can't say that all around the state in certain agencies. You could look back from my experience in agencies that I've been around and say, you know what, they're not heading in quite the direction that you would like to see. And
or they left a mess.
And it's just, it's like anything else. You have some law enforcement agencies that just operate on a higher level than others. And it was appealing to come into a law enforcement agency that's already operating at a high level.
Okay, awesome. So we talked a little bit earlier before we were on camera about the SRT group, and tell a little bit more about that, because for most of us, thankfully, we don't have to see the SRT group.
Yeah, and if things go very smoothly, most people don't know they've been out there, and in both of our most recent incidents here in the city that happened, it's SRT is our special response team.
Okay.
It's a group of individuals within our department that have special training. We all have training on weapons and tactics and so on, but they take it kind of to the next level. They train more. The weapons that they have, both lethal and less lethal, are at a different level than what a patrol officer would carry.
Okay.
A lot of agencies, especially in Kentucky, have a special response team, and there's different acronyms. It's been branded. It's the old SWAT teams, which was special weapons and tactics.
Okay.
And then some agencies are RRT, rapid response team, so they can brand them however somebody wants to, what acronym they are comfortable with. But it just allows you to put a group of individuals on a scene that have more experience in dealing with some high-risk situations. Warrants, high-risk warrants on somebody who's armed, a barricade situation, hostage negotiations go along with them. They won't typically do their own negotiations, but we have a group that do hostage negotiations that can assist our special response team and work as a team together. So we've had a couple instances here in the city, nothing major really to speak of, but we utilized them just by knowing that the situations were a little more high risk. And we had them come out and they did an excellent job, and I was able to be a part of that and watching. You know, when you're responsible for a high risk situation, I don't want to read about that the next morning on a call log.
Right.
You know, I feel like as the head of this agency that I need to be there, and then not only watch, but if there were something, and there weren't in either of these situations that I wasn't comfortable with, at that point, then that becomes my job to say, okay, let's stop for just a moment.
Yeah.
Let's pause here and make sure that we're progressing into this in a responsible way. But I was very impressed with how both of these team incidents went, and then support that our patrol provided in investigations on the peripheral side of it. So I was, again, very impressed with how those both turned out.
Awesome. Now, I've heard you're a runner.
I run. I don't know that you can classify me as a runner when we have such running talent around here, but I do run.
So are you going to be implementing more of that in your department?
Well, we have a PT standard, and then Kentucky has a standard, a test, a POPS test that all officers, new officers have to take, and we have an annual standard that I'm familiarizing myself with to see. But again, that's not unusual because KSP had that as well when I was working with them. So to change it and to make it any different is not in the plans. I really need to look at it. I know what the minimum standards are because that's by virtue of being, you know, the police officer's professional standard in Kentucky. That goes along with it. So I know we're at least meeting or exceeding that minimum.
Okay.
And I don't want a bunch of Jeremy Thompson clones out there, so we just need to make sure that we're all passing the standard, and we probably have, I said this in another, someone asked me a question about running, and we have one of our officers, Kelly Tipple, that does ultra marathons.
Yes, he does.
So when you say runner, I don't want to be mentioned in the same sentence because they do 100-mile races, and I've not done any of those. Nor is that in the immediate future.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to try and bring everyone up to his level, and I'm not going to try and get myself included up to those 100 milers. That's just not where I think we need to be.
Fair enough.
As a group.
Fair enough.
I wish him the best in those endeavors, but
oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Not now.
That's endurance that I've.
That's a different kind of endurance.
That's a different kind of endurance. You're exactly right.
Well, we run with some friends of mine. We do a Run for God program at our church, and then we run with the running group down at Running Souls with Will and Maddie down there, and then a couple of our officers run with that group, Kelly being one of them, and Matt McMillan. And so it's a small community in some ways, but then you look at it and it's just a good diverse mix from everywhere.
Sure.
And then, our department's no exception. We have people that are mixed into that.
Yeah.
So just another way that people recognize us off duty and can get to know us on a more personal level than that formal level when you call 911 and law enforcement respond to your residence, your car, wherever you might be, place of employment. That's not the time to really start asking social questions. How you been? How's your mom? And
how's the family?
Exactly. You don't have those opportunities. But when you meet people to run or you get involved in some of these other community events, those are the perfect time to get to know, the community, and then for the community to get to know us.
Sure. Now, I know we've got, I thought there were less than 45 officers, but we have a pretty big team at
We do,
EPD.
and we're growing.
Yes. So right now we have a few in the academy, you said?
We do. We have 3 in the academy. They graduate early fall, August and September, if memory serves me correctly. And then we have a new officer that's going to start on Monday.
Oh, okay. Great.
We have another one that we've offered some employment. We're in the final stages of that hiring.
Okay.
And she will probably get an academy date later in the fall, probably sometime when our other 3 graduate. She'll end up going to the academy. The officer that starts Monday is already a certified officer in Kentucky.
Okay.
So we don't have to send him to the academy.
Okay. So at that point, will we have all positions filled for a little while?
We will be flush, which is a good thing.
Because it's been a while since we've been that way, I do believe.
And I really don't know.
We had several retirements, and it started to trickle down.
I think we've backfilled those, and I think
Good.
we actually have grown by 1 or 2.
Awesome.
And talking with Jamie
Good.
before he left, I think we are at our highest capacity ever, manpower-wise, for the
Fantastic.
sworn. And we just recently added a school resource officer. So we're expanding.
That's great. Well, we're just about out of time. I guess the last thing I wanted to kind of ask and leave people with, because there's obviously more to Jeremy than just a uniform, but what are some of you enjoy running. What are some other things that if you had a full day to not pick up your phone, to not carry a radio, to not have a care in the world, what are some things you would do with your full day?
Well, to me, it's just about being outside. I really enjoy being outside, whether it's traveling with my family and we go to a beach or we take a cruise or something along those lines. We go to Gatlinburg quite a bit and we go hiking in the mountains. Kids are a little older, so the go-kart thing has passed, but
Right.
we do a lot of things outside. Fish with my son quite a bit. He's done the high school fishing, and I've coached my kids in about every sport that they've ever played, with the exception of my daughter in volleyball, softball, basketball, everything we've been involved with. This week, actually, I'm going with my son and his fishing partner to Alabama for the high school world finals, and we'll be down there for a week while they participate in that tournament.
Nice.
So it's just whatever can be done outside, hunting, fishing, golfing. That's my preference.
Awesome. Well, on behalf of the entire city and Elizabethtown as a whole, welcome.
Thank you.
I hope you do feel the great welcome from the community, and we know we're going to continue to see the great things that EPD has done and will continue to do under your watch. So, and as a city employee, we're all here to help. So anything we can do to be supportive of you guys. So.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that, and we need that, and it's good to be here, and I look forward to meeting a lot of new people in the coming months.
All right. Well, that wraps us up today for Issues and Insights. Thank you, Jeremy. Chief. Thank you, Chief Jeremy. And make sure you tune in next week for a whole different show.